Today I want to talk about why I like interpretation in Japanese and Georgian. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the reasons why I like to interpret in Japanese and Georgian. Before I'm going to share with you the reasons behind, first of all, I need to tell you that I'm not the professional interpreter, like doing that like every day or something, because obviously the amount of interpretation and translation works between Japanese and Georgian is not enough that I can do that every day. But when I have every single time when I get offers, when people ask me, I'm willing to do it. I do consecutive interpretation, like somebody when somebody speaks for around like 30 seconds or sometimes like 5 minutes or something in Georgian, let's say, I would interpret that what he or she says in Japanese after that. So I do the consecutive interpretation and also whispering. Sometimes whispering meaning that when somebody speaks in Georgian, for example, I interpret like simultaneously, like whispering at the same time. But I usually do only consecutive interpretation because whispering is very exhausting. Actually, it uses up a lot of energy in my brain. So I also translate between Japanese and Georgian, but at the same time I prefer interpretation. First of all, the people, Japanese and Georgian people who can interpret and translate between those two languages, the amount of the people is very few, I would say. It's not that many, like very countable amount of people who can do that. And there are lots of things that are very hard to interpret between Japanese and Georgian, like expressions and vocabularies, etc., etc. But even so, I find some kind of joy in, like joyful, like a happiness in doing that. The very first reason I like interpretation between Japanese and Georgian is that through interpretation I can get to know a lot of new knowledge and new spheres which I haven't had like any contact with. For example, my main interest is like linguistics, but I've done interpretation, or sometimes translation as well, by interpretation in medical spheres, for example, local municipality, meetings, like kind of very important, significant ones, business meetings, from like plastic recycling or logistics, etc., which those spheres that were like no connection with me, but through interpretation I could like get to know those spheres. And also through the preparation of interpretation, I need to I have to kind of prepare for the vocabularies and the words, and I get to know the information. So I can learn a lot of new words in Georgian. Sometimes I use English to kind of learn something new, so I can improve my knowledge and at the same time vocabulary and language levels in Georgian and language in Georgian and English. So which kind of brings me some kind of joy, because it gives me an opportunity to grow up. And the second reason why I find it very fun, I would say, is the feeling that I can be a part of, that I'm doing some kind of contribution in relationship building between Japan and Georgia. It's like, I don't know how to express this, but when like after the translation and the interpretation work ends, and when Japanese people and Georgian people tell me that without you, this kind of meeting or communication would have been impossible or something. These kinds of how do you say, thankful words that they tell me makes me feel very happy, and and also, recently ChatGPT and AI technology are like emerging, and I would say the quality of translation and interpretation between Japanese and Georgian, even these languages, is getting better and better. But still, I think the interpretation works in any languages will be done partially by people, professionals, because first of all, I think in order to kind of interpret at the spot, the interpreter has to be very familiar and familiar with the language and also culture, and some kind of needs to have the techniques to make the communication smoother between two sides, right? So, for example, when I go to translate and interpret, also Georgian people, because I'm Japanese, also Georgian people from their side, tell me that thank you so much for having learned our language, Georgian. I think by learning their own language, their first language, I think it's a form of some kind of paying respect to the people. So, which AI cannot do that, because AI just calculate all kinds of data, accumulates all kinds of data, and just translate and interpret, right? But it needs a lot of effort and years of effort to be able to speak the language fluently and to be able to interpret between Japanese and Georgian. So I think, like, by bringing me as a interpreter at the spot, I think it's some kind of a way of showing respect to the Georgian side, and I feel very kind of proud of myself, and I feel very honored to be there, and giving the contributing into the relationship making, building. And lastly, the reason why I love interpretation is that interpretation is very it needs a lot of courage, by the way, courage, and also I needs to be, if you've done any interpretation work at the beginning, or even now, I don't know, but it needs a lot of courage. I feel sometimes very scared and feared and nervous when I go to interpretation, because by in exam, for example, language exams, and when we have listening tests, right, the speakers repeat the sentences two times or something, and speak the phrases, say the sentences and phrases that we need to listen to. They say it very clearly, but in actuality, in reality, when you interpret, people say that only one time, no mistake can be accepted. And also sometimes people, depending on the environment where you interpret, it's kind of noisy, or kind of stressful, etc. So and when I interpret, everyone kind of listens to me, right? So no mistake, no error, no miscommunication can be forgiven. So it needs a lot. I need a lot of courage and brave. But by challenging that, kind of psychological barriers, overcoming the barriers, I become, I feel like I just grew up every single time I finish the interpretation works, which, translation works, I can do that by on my place, at home or online, alone. But as for interpretation, I need to use a lot of I need to use my brain a lot, and give attention to, pay attention to every single details of the environment and to the words that they say. So it's kind of very scary, but at the same time, by overcoming that, just, I feel like I'm just, kind of growing up and going forwards and upwards. So this is the reasons I really love interpretation. I do like translations, but I like more interpretations. So if you have any interpretation works that you want to offer me, I'm always open to that, open to your offers. I don't know, it just gives me lots of opportunities and chances to realize, to improve my skills and grow up myself, to grow up and also kind of support people to get closer in communication and in relationships. So this is some kind of thing that I can now really express, like how happy the moment I feel. But yeah, so this is the reasons I love interpretation between Japanese and Georgian and any other languages. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. またね。